I'm Vin.
When I tap on you.
I'm Vin.
I'm sorry.
And this is Altered Perceptions Azumaht.
Yes.
That should be interesting. Sounds like an Egyptian term.
This is for my insanity.
For timely topical political commentary, you can hit us up at Middle America with Vin and Sori. Mm-hmm. There are multiple ways to get your song reviews, dear listener. My favorite one is the community option. $1 the gate gets you in a Patreon, where you get to meet the great Kellandros, the great Ian, the great Leah of the Villages, one of my favorite people of all time. I was talking to Leah a couple nights ago. Leah, she can cook. That's another thing. We got to get, when we move, we got to get Leah over here too, from Chicago. Maybe we get Leah and we get Ian.
That's what I was going to say, at the same time.
That would be so legit!
At the same time.
Because Leah can cook. You and Leah can be back cooking. That's where the women belong.
Wow!
Cooking.
Okay.
Me and Ian could play some Fortnite and read some Bible. It'd be good.
I'm like, I was thinking Leah was going to cook and I'd get to put my feet up.
How? You can't have a guest come and then make her do all the kicking.
She might be okay with it. She'll be like, you have so many kids.
She'll probably agree to it because she's Leah. But don't do it. Don't let her do it to you, Leah. This ain't no slave time.
That would be fun.
Leah's very tan, but I don't think she's one of us.
She's very tan. That would be really fun to have them come at the same time.
Yeah, we got to figure that out. Okay, so that's out of the way. So Leah and Ian,
on to the rest of the villagers.
We're gonna have to fly them in. Okay. So there you go. $1 at the gate. You meet all these wonderful people, and then you pool your points together, and you influence what songs we do. Now, if you're a filthy capitalist individualist like Sori, and you just want to hear your song, $125 gets you jump straight to the head of the line.
Nothing wrong with that.
Which is what happened here. This is Azumaht, and this is for My Insanity.
This multiple times.
If you do it 3 times, you get bumped down to the $75 rate, which I'm pretty certain is where My Insanity is. So, without further ado, Altered Perceptions, let's go.
Ready? They give a very, very Christian response. This sounds like this man has some demonic oppression or something. Wow. Okay, first of all, when the song was going, the lyrics were very disturbing. But then, like, in the middle, like, the song was, like, so, like, heavy. I was like, do I rock? Do I judge? Do I... I felt a little mixed up. And then it was pretty, Are they talking about a certain event that I'm not familiar with?
Well, I'm trying to find, the actual god, Azumaht. It sounds like I said, something Egyptian, but I don't know of any Egyptian god that demands things like that. And every time, here we go.
Things like that. What? Eating people?
Yeah. The name
dragging them from their homes, eating them in front of their children.
Azumaht is not listed, so I'm trying to find, like, hey, maybe there's some god. Maybe they made him up. You know what I mean? Or maybe he has some relationship with a being named Azumaht.
Yep.
And okay, here's what Azumath means in Hindi. Nearby words. Okay, so I don't know. I can't find. I'm gonna be checking out the comment section. I can't find Azumaht as an actual god. So it seems like they just made him up. And so that being the case, it really.
I don't know if it's because I'm pregnant, but the thought of having human meat in me digesting is very...
Yeah, they did a good job with the... one of the things that's interesting to me is in the world that we live in, especially with the advent of the internet and things of that nature, and then you put social media on top of it, like, I feel like shocking metal and shocking lyrics almost lose their edge because people have seen so much craziness.
Oh.
Like, people have seen... There's, like, literally hundreds of thousands, maybe 1 million Americans have seen someone get decapitated.
I've never seen it. I don't watch any of those
in one of these ISIS videos. No, I'm glad that you did. But at the same time, we've seen people get, the George Floyd videos, the Tamir Rice videos. Like, we see so much real death now. Because 20, 30 years ago, the complaint was media is desensitizing people to horror because you're watching horror on the big screen or on TV shows or whatever. Now you're seeing actual real life people being killed. And it's on the evening news, and it's on whatever, and it's on the internet, and you can keep rewinding it, and yada, 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 and it, And so, like, I feel like shocking, crazy, horrible lyrics now lose some of the edge because people are seeing this stuff, and to me, it's just a matter of time till we find some cannibalistic, boogeyman, bad guy or whatever that does that on tape, and people, I'm sure it's probably out there somewhere for people to look at. So, on the one hand, but what we do is, I've made a pretty, big stance about protecting your mental health from this stuff. Mm-hmm. So the fact that it's out there doesn't mean you should ingest it or watch it or whatever. So what that means for us is that when I hear lyrics like this, I'm like, because I'm not feeding myself on a steady diet of crazy visuals and things like that. And so it's still disturbing. And the other thing is that my mind is a very visual person. So,
yeah.
Lyrically, it was pretty horrific. But, good Lord, I mean, the guys, consume, I proceed, everything for my God, Azumaht, Holy King. Set me free with this sacrifice. Human meat in me digesting, breaking down in my stomach, ritualist deed. Eat their entity entirely. That's smart what he does with the lyrics, though, I gotta say. Drown the children as I skin their parents one by one. Mass consumption of the non-believers for the Holy One. Eat their flesh and register their power to my own. That's kind of like a Highlander thing. That was actually David something or other. He was a missionary and the purpose-driven death guy. He was crazy. And he was talking. They were these cannibals in this place where he was witnessing. And he was and they were talking about contextualization. So contextualization is how Christians find ways in the culture to find connecting points between that culture and Christianity. And so, it's funny. He was talking to the 275 Ranger when he was asking about, Sam Harris and morality and things like that. And Sam Harris is like, what if you had a culture that would tear out the eyes of the, whatever? And the lady said, well, that's their culture. We can't tell them it's wrong. The whole moral relativism thing and trying to find an objective way. Yeah. All of us know that that's wrong, but...
Tear out the eyes of what? Other people?
Yeah, of the firstborn.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. We all know that that's wrong, but, they've got no basis for saying...
Oh, no.
So she had to... and Harris is like, that's just ridiculous, because Harris is very pragmatic. Like, it's... but she's like, hey, you can't judge another culture. So I guess we can't judge this culture either. But anyway... So they were talking. So contextualization, like for example, in certain contexts, you had this thing called a peace child. So if you had two warring, this was in Papua New Guinea, I think. You had two warring factions, and if a woman from one faction and a man from another faction were married and they had a child, that was the end of the conflict. So that peace child was something that... So the Christians would swoop in and say, well, Jesus is the peace child because, we're at war with God and God is holy, and so now there's this conflict, but then a child is born and then so the child... So you take what's in the culture and you find a way to connect it to Christianity. There's a lot of theories that basically say because this is the ultimate truth, then you're going to have vestiges of it in every culture.
There was like this Indian culture. I think it was like the same people as the edge of the sword, the end of the sword. What was it?
End of the spear. That's Papua New Guinea. Yeah,
and there was like when they would leave, like their tribes were always getting invaded by other tribes, and they had to take off through the woods.
Yeah,
and so. They would leave markings on the trees so that way the people would know how to find it, and so that's what they used. They said that God left markings on the, through Jesus for us to be able to find our way back to Him.
Right.
So using stuff like that.
Right. So this guy is the guy is like mental. I'm certain he's mentally ill, but God uses him like crazy. So remember the book Purpose Driven Life? So he held this conference called A Purpose Driven Death, and then if you jumped on his mission team, like. You would have had to sign your own death certificate and all this. Yeah, it was crazy. You lay down in a coffin. Just really, really weird stuff. The guy is crazy. But anyway, he ran into this crew of cannibals. So he's like, how do I contextualize this? And because they believed that when you consumed the person, you took their life force, and now they were...
Did he use communion?
And so look, it says right there, like, he eats them, right? And then eat their flesh and register their power to my own. So what does he do? He goes to John chapter 6. Unless you eat my flesh and drink my blood, you have no life in you. Right? So the people at the time were saying, how is this man going to give us blood to drink? And of course, later on, I think in verse 63, Jesus says, the flesh profits nothing. It's the spirit that gives life, and the words I've spoken to you are spirit and they are of life, but you will not come to me to blah, 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 blah. And so the point so Jesus is saying this spiritually. So the guy goes, okay, you guys have the right idea. Like, if you eat somebody, you can take their life force. Here's the problem. This guy's going to die. You're going to die. You're going to die. So even if you take his life force, it doesn't matter because you're all going to die. But what if you could eat a person who conquered death? And they said, we'll do that. And that's how they all converted to Christianity. It was
gosh.
It was unbelievable. But it was brilliant.
Yeah.
The guy, I'll show you the video after. The guy is completely psychotic. He's crazy. I think he's gonna suck for a while because he's a brother. But it was. I remember I was driving and I was listening to it. That was when I was driving Machine Gun Funk. And I was like, holy shit, I can't believe you just did that. Because it's so brilliant. And they all did it. And then they basically came to him and said, we shouldn't be eating people, should we? And I was like, no, it's not a good play to eat anyone. It's not good.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. I'm usually not a fan of missionaries coming in and changing people's culture.
But that's something.
That part of the culture, though, I'm good at. Papua New Guinea, they were doing the systemic rape thing in Papua New Guinea. They changed that. Like, okay, good. The aesthetics, how you look, how you dress, keep it that way, yada, yada, yada. But the moral stuff, like, I'm not a moral relativist. Like, there are societies that are built on better moral standards than others, and the closer you are to the Sermon on the Mount, the better you are as a person and as a society. It's just. But this guy, so as I'm listening to this, I'm like, this is horrible, this is terrible, and I'm like, even that, like, if there was a people that was devoted to this type of God, we would have something for him. It's just mind-boggling to me. Like, it's just absolutely mind-boggling to me.
The part where it says, drown the kids as I skin the parents one by one, that to me is like, I feel like if somebody peeled my skin off, that would be like excruciating pain. But I almost feel like if I had to watch my kids drown, that I'm not sure how much of the peeling of the skin you would feel because you're watching your kids drown. Yeah. I just can't even. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
To me, okay, so I think that this guy, like, I don't know if the artist made the song himself or what, but the character in this song to me sounds like he's been filled by a demon or something, because he says,
well,
like,
if you'd have actually seen the actual video, because I was playing the actual video here.
Yeah, that guy looked pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Yeah, even the video part where he doesn't have the black all in his eyes, he still looks not right. But over here, he says, death is nigh. I view the flames of the eternal ash. The flames consume my existence. Feel the warmth of my horrid past life. It won't last. Death, do me a favor and kill this form. Like,
yeah.
He is dehumanizing himself by his words. Like, kill this form, cast me to hell, help me find peace in flames past this mortal shell. Like, he seems like a very tormented. I'm talking about the guy. I don't know what the connection is between. I mean, that guy doesn't look like he's feeling too much peace, but I don't know. But in this song, like, this character is not in a good place. Obviously, if you're drowning children and peeling skin off people and consuming them, that's not going to put you in a good place. But the reason why I think that there's some sort of, like, demon that's overpowered him is because he's not even being looked at. He killed this form, and then, I don't know, like, anytime I've ever seen someone in a situation where there was, like, demons tormenting them, like, they were very, very tormented.
100%.
So, 100%. I don't know. It just reminded me of that.
Yeah, and it was interesting because we did a couple consecutive firesides, and he said,
wait, hold on. At the beginning, he said, "Set me free with the sacrifice." Like, he wants to be freed from this eternal king of his.
It's almost like a reverse atonement in a sense, because it looks like he did something bad, and, like, I'm talking about the person in real life now. It seems to me that he did something bad that he feels guilty for. And so in the lyrics of the song, he's like, what is the worst thing I could possibly do to make myself completely irredeemable?
Oh, yeah.
Right? So, like, he did something bad, because he talks about his past life, what he's done in his past life or whatever. Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, I mean, what you've done in your past life cannot compare to what you just described.
I thought the past life was that.
Cannibalizing people, yada, yada, yada. So it's almost like a reverse atonement, to where he does so much evil for this God that he makes himself irredeemable, like impossible to save. And then, you know, he ends up in hell or whatever. Like, I think for some people, their relationship with God and relationship with themselves is so screwed up that they feel that they're beyond help, but people outside of them are like, no, you're still redeemable. Like, you can still, whatever. And that's why I'm, like, not a big fan of people minimizing the things that people have done. Like, there was a guy, we were talking about it in the fireside, where he said, I'm not going to repeat it, but he did X, Y, Z, and it was a horrible situation. And people were like, oh, and I was like, well, no, you don't deserve to go to heaven. But Christianity does not operate on deserves.
Deserves, right.
Because I don't.
If it does, none of us would.
I definitely don't. So like, I love the fact that you can, like, look at the horrors of the things that you've done to yourself, to God, to people. As a Christian, you can look it right in the face and not water it down at all, and still find a way to get forgiveness because Jesus bore the penalty that you're supposed to have. But if you don't have that, and you're surrounded by people who are telling you, oh, it's not that bad, or everybody screws up, or, well, this happened to you when you were small, so this, precipitated that, like, and as true as that might be, it doesn't fix your conscience. Right. That does not tell that to the person that you did that to. You know what I mean? So it's everybody's playing psychology nowadays, but good Lord, I mean, he's just pushing himself to a point. And of course, you think about Molech was one of these ancient Near Eastern gods that was demanding the death of children. And the Valley of Hinnom, where you had Israelite people who were sacrificing their children via the flames. And you hear all these ancient Near Eastern texts about the loud bass drumming and things like that because you're trying to drown out the sound of your own kid. I mean,
it's very hard for me to believe that women would do that. I feel like maybe the husbands did it, because how could the wives? I don't understand. How could you carry a child all that way and birth them and then offer them up like that?
Well, that's the point. It's like that when you, and we believe that there are demonic powers that have jurisdiction over certain areas in the ancient world. And so if you could convince this group of people that degree of sacrifice from a mother would save the whole community, then they would do it.
No.
Well, I don't think...
I don't even like it when you tell Orion no.
I don't think... Well, no, you wouldn't do it. You'd say, well, screw them.
I say, screw all you.
But you're a person who was brought up in Western culture, and it's about individualism and da-da-da-da. That didn't work like that in the ancient world. Like, people didn't understand individualism the way that we do in the ancient world. So, I don't think every mother didn't do it. I'm sure every mother didn't do it, but
I guarantee you the ones that didn't, when bad stuff happened, they said, this is your friggin' fault.
Right, and then...
Pack my bags up and move.
Well,
you can't.
If you could. I mean, I'm to be honest with you, I haven't really looked at the A&E response to women who refused to do it. That's actually a pretty good question. But I haven't looked at that. But I mean, it's I know, like, this is shock rock stuff for a lot of people. It's like, come on. But when you've read the fact that a lot of this stuff actually happened in the history of human beings, and if you're interested in the Bible, you have to do a lot of work in the ancient Near East. You have to. And so when you do, you see some of the most horrific, crazy things, and it's not very difficult for me to believe that there are dark intelligences that are inspiring this stuff. And of course, the irony of the whole thing when you're talking about drowning and tearing the flesh apart and all this stuff is that victims of crucifixion died by suffocation, and they were basically skinned alive. And we're saying that God did that with his favorite son. So it's an amazing thing. Like, there's like a million different ways that the cross speaks to all these different things as a Christian. So, and the very reason for that is so that God can convince us that you don't have to do that to your kids, and you don't have to. Yes, a mighty sacrifice needs to be done. Even in the Quran, it talks about that Isaac was ransomed with a mighty sacrifice. But a mighty sacrifice is necessary. I think we all know that in our collective consciousness, and people try to pretend as if they don't have things that they know they cannot make up for. Mm-hmm. You do. You have things you can't make up for. Mm-hmm. And one way of doing it is to say, I'm gonna like confirm myself in the most evil version of myself possible, so that because sometimes hope is almost a fearful thing for people. So like, if you try to go back on a right path in your own energy and your own sort of spiritual energy to try to like make it up for yourself, you kind of end up in this constant loop of hope and disappointment. Mm-hmm. And I think, lyrically, he's gotten to the point where he's like, you know what? I'm out of this loop thing, so I'm going to make sure that I'm the worst possible person I can imagine, and then that'll just settle it, and I'll know what to expect, wow. And then that'll be that.
Wow.
And then I'll take my punishment, Mm-hmm. Some people would rather punishment than forgiveness. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's my take on it. Very, extremely disturbing song.
Mm-hmm. This part was pretty creepy, too. He said, as I consume them in their home, I'm in their effing home. Like that, just like the thought of somebody creeping around in my home.
Yeah.
Is very creepy.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you weren't here, I would just feel bad for the creeper.
I mean, you feel bad for the creeper?
I just feel like if somebody was creeping around in our house, it would not go very well for them. And I think you shouldn't do that.
Oh, somebody was in our home?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm thinking like if somebody was in my home and you weren't here, how scary that would be. But if you were here, I feel like you picked the wrong house.
Well, I would tell them the gospel. One died for all, therefore all died. Anyway, let's. What do you give it? I'm going to give it a 9.6 for its disturbing nature. And I like the metal.
I like the sound of it, too.
I like the metal. And it kind of had some cognitive dissonance, too, because I'm like, man, I don't want to rock to this song.
That's what I said. I said that.
I'm trying to rock to this song. These people. I'm looking at the live. He's rocking a mask. This is 2017 though. Wow, they've got big fans. Anyway, there you go. This is actually a guy I'd like to talk to, like on the side, not even a filmed interview. There you go.
But
shout out to the big
filmed
homie.
interview would be cool, but if not,
eat my flesh. I wouldn't want that to be filmed. Eat my flesh and drink my blood. There you go. John chapter 6. Vin out.
Sori out.
Gone.